All right, we're live. Welcome everybody. My name is Cameron. I am the head of growth at Tinybird. I've got Javi Santana with me, who you probably all know at this point, and Adia Perez, two of our kind of head honchos in product. Um, and we're here to ask or to answer any questions that you have about Tinybird Forward, which we sort of just kind of, I don't know if you'd call it generally available, because we still support our sort of classic user experience, but more public beta than it was already in. Launched on Friday of last week, and we've kind of been just sort of sharing a lot of the things that we've been doing this week. We'll share a little bit more today and Monday, and that'll kind of wrap up our launch week. But what we want to do today is just kind of show a quick demo, show you what we've been building, and how it sort of changes the user experience. Santana's going to do that, and then we'll answer any questions you have. If you have questions, feel free to ask them at any time. If you're watching on YouTube, you can ask them in the YouTube chat. If you're watching on LinkedIn, same thing. Just you can ask them in the chat. I will do my best to keep an eye on Twitter as well, in case people have questions on the Twitter feed. But before we jump in, just kind of want to share a couple of resources. One, if you're kind of new to Tinybird, Tinybird Forward, you can check out everything we have launched as a part of this. If you go to this short link, that's kind of just a page that has a lot of resources, blog posts, videos, docs, things like that, to share our launch. If you are a Tinybird user and you want to sort of dig into the documentation, go ahead and go to the docs forward. We still maintain our classic documentation, but if you want to kind of get the new user experience and understand that, please do that. There's the link there. And then one of the things I wanted just to remind everybody, earlier this week, we announced our Vibe-a-thon. We wanted to do a hackathon with this because the user experience with Forward is really awesome. And so we had thought, like, well, maybe we'll do like a 48-hour hackathon, give you a couple of days. And Sancha, our CEO, said, no, let's only give them 48 minutes, because the experience really is that fast. And so we want to see what you all can build in 48 minutes. So if you go to this Git repo, that is where we will sort of announce the prompt for the Vibe-a-thon. We're going to drop the prompt on Wednesday, March 26th at 12 p.m. Eastern. You'll have 48 minutes to push something to that repository, and then we'll sort of judge based on a few criteria, which we'll share in the repo. But the nice thing here is that you can win. The grand prize winner will get over $3,000 in credits to dev tools like Vercel, Tinybird, obviously, Resend, Plain, Dub, and a lot of other great tools as well. So there's some good prizes. If you want to put that on your Google Calendar so you don't forget, there's a short link for you to do that as well. All right. I am going to hand it over to Santana to do a quick demo. Reminder, if you have questions, go ahead and ask them in the chat, and we'll keep an eye on that. Santana, the floor is yours.
Okay, let me share the screen. So I'm gonna share my entire screen. I'm gonna do most of the things on cursor. You can use Beam and the terminal, whatever is best for you. But I'm going to use cursor because it's the autocomplete is nice, and it's going to be much faster. So basically, what I want to show you today is doing a quick demo of Tinybird. Remember, I wanted to remember a little bit what Tinybird is, just in case that you don't know. So it's basically in the same way that when you are building an app, you can use Postgres, AWS, EC2, and other stuff. But in that case, maybe using Supabase is better. If you are building like some analytics project, it could be any analytics any kind of analytics. Let's say in this case, I'm going to be like a kind of a Google Analytics, but anything that needs or involves to have a lot of data is a good candidate to for using Tinybird. So in this case, just to remind a little bit what Tinybird is like we have a lab database. In our case, we run a fork of ClickHouse. I explained that probably in a blog post in the future, but why we do that. But just remember that we use ClickHouse under the hood. We have an API gateway, we have an ingestion system, and we have a way to manage your data project. I'm going to show you what a data project is in a few seconds. And of course, we have the Solidity UI and the way to deploy all of this in the cloud. That's what we offer, and you can self-host that as well. And if you want to self-host your Tinybird instance, you can do that. Just check the documentation. I'm not going to do a demo of that, but if you go to the documentation, you can check how to do it. So that's what Tinybird is. So this is what I'm gonna show you in the demo. So I'm going to just create a basic project. In this case, it's a Google Analytics clone. Like in Google Analytics, basically clients, like web clients, send info about what's going on, like events. Say I click this, I clicked here, I visited this other URL, that kind of thing. And then you have like a view, a dashboard of what your users or what your visitors are doing. I'm not going to build the dashboard, but I'm going to build all the backend just with a few comments. Then I will explain you what's a data project, how to do the full development cycle, like how you actually work with the data, how you actually create new endpoints, or you actually analyze the data. So that's a little bit what you're going to see. And I will show you a kind of couple of extra things that are super interesting, especially in the related to this this new version of Tinybird. So if you go to documentation, let me go back because I was checking. If you go to the get started, do you see my browser? Yeah, you do, right? Yeah. Okay. So basically, if you check I'm going to go to the quick start straight away, so you can see how to install Tinybird. I already installed, of course. So in this case, you just need to run this command and it just install it. I'm not going to do it because I already do it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this TV login. So I'm going to go here. This opens a new browser. I'm going to create a new workspace. I'm going to call it GA. Okay. And that's it. Once that you do that, you go to the console, and I'm going to. Is it big enough? You see it right? A little bit bigger, maybe. I don't hear you, Cameron, but I guess that you're seeing that. That's okay. That's good. Okay, so that's it. It's telling me that I'm already logging in GA. This is my email address. I mean, don't spam me, please. So the next thing I need to do is TV local start. This basically starts a local instance of Tinybird. So in this case, I'm not gonna do it because I already have it. So if I do local status, it's going to tell me that it's running. Basically, it runs a Docker image with everything that you need. So it's close to what we run in production. And of course, I mean, I'm talking about the code, not of course the same architecture, but this is basically what it is. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a project. So what we say, we recommend in the quick start is that you use TV create and developing and some space, whatever. In this case, I'm going to write my own prompt. So I mean, TV create is basically what is useful to start a project. It's like when you don't have anything, you start from scratch, and you can use any data that you have. You have a Parquet file, a CSV file with data already. You can use that to create a data project. So that's going to analyze what you have in that data. Is going to create all the schemas and everything. In this case, as I'm starting from scratch, what I'm going to do, I'm going to use the prompt option, which is okay. I'm going to tell you what I want. In this case, I'm building Google Analytics. I'm going to say a simple Google Analytics just in case it generates too much things for my personal web page. So I'm going to close this now. So let me explain you a little bit what's happening under the hood. So right now it's generating the base project. That means that that's a bunch of folders like data sources where we are going to store data, endpoints, materialization copies, pipes. I'll explain in a minute what all of those things are. As you can see, it created some resources like a page views data source. That's where we are going to store our page views, a few endpoints. I will explain them in a minute. A README, that's where we are going to start. And then it generates like a few things more like CI/CD files, cursor rules, and looks like we have like a problem with the fixtures. We'll fix that in a second. So let me go to the data project. This is the data project. As I said, we have the GitHub GitLab kind of CI/CD configuration already set. So if you push that into GitHub, that's gonna run, a GitHub action thing, and it's going to run the test, deploy, whatever. Connections. Here we will store all the Kafka, S3, and so on. Connections, copies, how you copy data, but I'm going to go to data sources. So data sources, we store here all the project files. In this case, it's a pretty simple data source. We have the typical things that you have in our web events: data source, timestamp, session ID, page URL, and all that stuff. And after that, we kind of set some configuration for the data source, kind of the engine, the partition engine, and sorting key. Those things are not important now. Those are basically a way to this is a way to specify the index. Let's say how you organize the data. That's not important. The important part is here. So you have the column name, the data type, and how to find it in the JSON that you are about to send. So if you go, by the way, if you go to the README, this is going to generate. I'm going to make it a little bit, so you can see it in the screen. So in this case, if you check here, there is a way to send data, and you can send a JSON file, as you can see here, a JSON file, a JSON document, let's say, and that's why you have session ID. You can, in page views, say, okay, just put what is in session ID into this session ID column. You could save the whole JSON and query that later, but in this case, is splitting that into columns, because that's most performant. And this is the way that you can send data, and we are going to send data in this way in a second. Apart from the data, of course, you need to use the data to do. I mean, if you want to do something useful, you need other things, not just the data. In this case, we created a few endpoints, or it created a few endpoints, which is like a kind of the top pages. As you can see, these files are are really simple way to create endpoints with just SQL. There are a few things that are not SQL. For example, description. This is kind of a node. You can create. You can have different nodes to split your SQL. In general, SQLs tend to be super large. Depending on the project, of course. But you have this kind of thing. You can create different nodes, and with different nodes, you can create a super complex endpoint in different steps. So you can understand what's actually how that works. Okay. So in this case, it's just page URL count this thing, and a few filters. As you can see, you can use this templating language. It's quite simple. You can see if start date is defined, just add this filter. Pretty simple. There is nothing really complex here. So that's it. There are like a few traffic sources, visitors over time, and so on. They're like no, we don't have fixtures. We can generate fixtures now because it looks like it failed. The typical demo effect. This is what's happening now. We'll fix that in a second. So the thing is, there are like a few more things here: test, pipe, materializations, and so on. I'm not going to explain them. You can read the documentation and so on, or probably on some other demos we'll go through them. But the idea is that, okay, so what's next, right? It's like well, I have my project with my data source and a few endpoints here, endpoint definition with .pipe and .data source. So what can I do now? So the next step is to check if everything is fine. And to check that everything is fine is just run TB build, right? It's like in the same way that when you have like a Java project, you compile it, you have a Next.js project, you have Next.js, and you run dev to understand what's going on, or you have C++, or whatever language, Rust, you compile it, whatever you want. In this case, you can use TB build, and that goes through all the files, check that everything is fine, that the syntax is fine, the relationship between them is fine, and everything is fine. So that's kind of the way to start working. Of course, you have a TB dev, which is like it's kind of the same thing, but it runs all the time. So it allows me to, for example, like if I'm going to do a quick change here, I'm going to add like I don't know, I'm going to change these visits by just the name. Okay, so when I save it, it detects some that there is like some changes. Okay, so it looks like at some point is using visits to sort, so it gives me an error. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to just change this, and I hope that it builds in the right way. Yeah, and I already have it running here. There is no data because it failed at the beginning. You saw it. I'm going to fix that, by the way. So this is the endpoint. I could just open this. Of course, there is no data, but you have the endpoint to start testing right away. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just create some fake data. So in this case, I'm going to use mock page views. Let's see if we have a better luck now. Okay, looks like we had better luck. And in this case, what they generated here is like in the fixtures folder, we have like a page views, some page views that are already generated. As you can see, the data looks real. That's why we are using LLM under the hood to generate the data. Actually, we don't generate the data. We generate the SQL that generates the data. So in this case, as you can see, the SQL is kind of a little bit weird because we are generating 10 rows with this kind of thing. But the JSON is pretty legit, I will say. So you can see different sources and so on. So once that you create that data, you can start like for example, you can query data here. You can let's check if we have like some data here from page views. So we have 10 rows as expected. We can run any query here, or we can just do page views and actually run I'm going to make this a little bit larger. You run page views, the command, like as a command, you get all the data. And of course, if let me check top pages. Yeah, it's returning like a page URL, visits, and unique visitors. By the way, I'm going to change these visits back to the original thing because I kind of don't like that kind of naming. Anyway, next thing. So as I was talking to you before, I explained you a little bit what's a data project, and now I did a little bit of dev. Like we started to work on chain things, but one of the things that you can do as well is like, okay, you can test things. And how do I test things? So ideally, when you are, as I have some API endpoints, I could create some. I already have the fixtures, so I could call the endpoints, get the answer from those endpoints, and check with something that I'm expecting, and that's nice. But it's nicer if you can use Tinybird to build it. So you can use test, create. I'm going to just use top pages, okay? So in this case, what I say is, okay, create me these tests for this employee endpoint that's called top pages. So that's of course going to use an LLM to generate the whole thing. We don't say that that's an LLM because we don't need to. You just get the right result. So if you go here, as you can see, it generated a few tests. In this case, for example, in the data, if you go here and check the page views, the data is this year, actually it's today. But if you go to the top pages, it's actually using I don't know what date. So I'm going to change this. I'm going to put some date in the future, like next year, and I'm going to just I don't know what's going on here with window too small. What I did I do? Okay. Oh shit. Okay. So TV, I'm going to run test. I'm going to run the test. They should kind of fade, right? Because I changed the date. So when it's like no, this is not actually working right. Output unexpected. Okay, yeah, of course. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to change this I'm going to update test. So I can do test update is top pages, right? Yeah, top pages. Okay, so in this case, it's failing because it has an error validating. So let me check what's going on here. Okay, expecting in this case, expecting like a timestamp, but to be honest, I don't want this to be a timestamp change time by date. Let's see if that works. Okay, looks like it did the work. So let's see. Okay, it's working. I'm going to run the test again. Okay, now we are talking because it's expecting template syntax error and you actually have actual data. So let me update the test with the right thing. Let me run the test again. They should run. Let me check the test. Yeah, as you can see, there's like a right data. So of course, I mean, this is a pretty simple example, but this is the way that you can like create tests for your API endpoints and so on. So what's next? So now if we put that into GitHub, these tests are gonna run in GitHub Actions, and in the same way that you have tests for your JavaScript project, this is going to run the test for this project. Okay. So next step is now I have the whole project. I'm going to deploy it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to deploy it to the cloud. So I'm going to just run TV deploy. So this is gonna just check what's new. In this case, everything is new. It's going to submit it already finished. So let me go to the deployment. So yeah, you can see what happened in the deployment. You can see how everything is related. In this case, it's pretty simple because we have page views and traffic sources, and top traffic sources, top pages. I mean, 3 endpoints. We have the data source here. As you can see, it's here. I can ingest some data. I'm gonna do it. I copy this curl thing. I'm going to just paste it here. And in theory, it should show the data here in a few seconds. So as you can see, you have the traffic sources and all the endpoints here, and you can call them. I'm going to get the top pages, the one that I've been using for the test. I'm going to use it. In general, this should return some data, I guess, at some point. Okay, I'm going to change this by, I don't know why this is kind of so weird. I don't know why it's using this. It's returning some data. Oh, no, it's not returning the data. I don't know if I push data or not. Yeah, it's pushing data because I'm seeing it. Okay, it's in 2023. I don't know why I'm sending data. I'm going to change this, and it should, if I run the endpoint, I should get exactly this. So that's the basic stuff. I could deploy as many times as I want, whatever. So this is the basic stuff. I mean, as you can see, like putting like a project in production is super simple. You don't need to do many things. What I'm gonna do next, and it's in the demo, I'm going to show you a little bit other like other interesting things that you have, like in this case is schema migration, which is like it's not that simple to do. Let me explain what I'm seeing. So imagine that you have this data source, but you say no, I want to add also like some kind of I don't know, any other column, which is basically okay. Look, cursor is telling me that I want to get the operating system is going to be a string. Okay, so okay, just I'm going to add the column, and of course, if you add the column, that's it's simple. You don't need to worry too much about it. But when you have like a few billion rows in a table, it's not that easy, because just adding the new column can block everything, and it will happen 100%. It can, 100%. It happens all the time. So in this case, it's a pretty simple change, but I could change also the some. For example, I can change the IP by uint32 because I want just to do this change. Probably it's not the best, the most interesting change, but I did this change. So what I'm going to do is check if TB build works. So of course, the fixtures are not going to work because I changed some of the stuff. Don't worry, I'm not going to regenerate the fixtures, but of course they fail. But what I want to do is I want to try to deploy this. So before deploying, I want to check what I have with what I have locally with what I have in the cloud, and this is telling me, okay, page views is modified, and there is a error because of course you are trying to modify this IP address and you are adding this new column, and this new schema is not compatible with what you have. So it's telling me try using this query as a forward query. So that's what we're going to do, and I'm going to explain to you a little bit what forward queries are. So when you have like two schemas and you want to move data from one schema to the next one, if the schemas are compatible, you can do it. But in general, you are doing like a non-compatible schema change, and that happens quite often. Or you need to that requires to tell the database how to move, or to the Tinybird how to move data from one to the other. So that's what forward query is. Of course, it's not just to move the data, is that in the meantime, while all the deploy is happening and we are moving all the data and we are changing types and everything, this query allows us to keep running your project without actually going down, because of course, while it's deploying, you have kind of two schemas or data in two different schemas, and we need to work with something that allows us to move data from the past to the future, right? So that's what this is about. So in this case, I'm not going to use this proposed thing. I'm going to just use this because otherwise that's gonna fail. Let me make this a little bit bigger. Format this. Okay, good. Okay. So now with this forward query, I'm going to put a little bit. Okay, that's it. So as you can see, the forward query is telling, okay, just get into 32. Of course, I mean, you will need to change. This is uint. So it's not. I think that. Okay, good. Is going to transform the IP into in 32 or 0. Is going to be 0 all the time because you cannot cast RP address into in 32. I mean, of course, you can transform into 4 bytes, but in this case, that's not the right way, but just for the demo. and I'm going to just put like a empty string. Okay, so I'm going to check again to see if I did it right. It's not forward query is not valid option. Yeah, of course it's not. Yeah, so I'm going to check again. Okay, it's valid. So I'm going to just deploy it. So if I go again to the cloud, I'm going to go to the data sources, page views. As you can see, this is still a stream. So let's see how the deployment is already working. At some point, it should start like modifying the whole thing. Well, this is actually doing the deployment. I'm going to show you a little bit of other things that you have on the UI. And by the way, you can connect the UI to your local instance, to the cloud instance, or any instance that you have it running on the cloud. So for example, you can see the lineage. I showed you a little bit of this before. You can check the deployment. This is the in progress thing. You have observability page where you can see the CPU time, queries per second, errors, ingested rows, and everything. And you also have playgrounds and time series. Like playgrounds is basically a way to just query data. So I can create it's a kind of a Jupyter notebook, but in this case, for example, I'm going to just do where session ID whatever, and you can do now here count. Yeah. So as you can see, I'm picking data from this node. I'm going to change the node 0. So you see it more clear, node 0 and everything. And you can have like this here, like a kind of in order to, if you want to also, to know what you have inside your data, you can check it here with this Jupyter kind of notebooks. You have time series that allow you to check. You can have some charts here. Of course, I don't have a lot of data. I just have one row, so it's it's a pretty simple thing. I could put like a million rows, but anyway, this is a little bit the thing. Looks like the deployment finished. Let me open this to check if okay. Page views modify. I'm going to go here, and as you can see, IP is uint32, and I have an OS string. I can send more data to check that everything is running properly. It's running properly. Probably okay. What I did, sorry. I did, that's it. Of course, IP is going to be 0 because, I did not the right thing. But anyway, this is more or less what Tinybird can do. Of course, this is a pretty simple project. You could be like a super complex projects with a lot of materialized views, things that put data out, getting data from S3, Kafka, and other data sources. But I wanted to do it like a quick demo, not that quick, but a simple demo showing the most basic stuff on Tinybird. And that's it. Probably we'll do some other demos showing how the deployment actually works, how you can have like a staging deployments, so you can send data to your project before actually moving that into production, things like that are quite useful. And we have been doing that for years now, with most of our clients, and we are putting everything together in the same tool with this. And that's it. I don't know if I was too fast or too slow, but this is what it is.
Oh, it was good. Thanks, Santana. It's helpful to just see it end to end. Yeah, if anybody has questions, you can ask them in the YouTube chat or in the LinkedIn chat or whatever. If you want to do that now, we're happy to answer them. If not, definitely would invite you to join our Slack community. We actually have a dedicated channel for Forward. If you have questions, you can ask them there. So just encourage you, if you haven't signed up for the Slack community, go ahead and do that. Ask your questions there. One question that I have, Santana, and maybe Ariel, you can chime in as well, would be, I already have a bunch of workspaces on the classic Tinybird experience. how do I migrate them? When do I migrate them? Is there a way to get support? That's something I think a lot of people will be wondering, is how to sort of migrate to this new experience. So would be helpful to get an answer to that.
So we put together a kind of a guide for you to migrate. It's kind of a manual process now. We are working on a way to migrate your workspaces straight, just clicking on a button. So we are expecting to have that in the following weeks. The migration is pretty simple. We don't need to move any data. We don't need to do any complex stuff. It's just a flag, to be honest, and that will be it. But in the meantime, if you want to start testing like your workspaces in the new version, you can follow the guide in the URL. But we are keeping, the Tinybird Classic is what we call it, is going to continue working. So you don't need to migrate. You can stay and you can use the current version of Tinybird, the Classic, let's say. The nice thing is that everything that you saw, or most of what you saw, is built on top of the Classic version. So all the APIs, all the data management, the infra, and everything is exactly the same. So what we change is the experience of using projects and developing on top of Tinybird. So that's why we are keeping both versions, at least for a while.
Cool. Yeah, that would be kind of my follow-up question. And maybe this is a question for Ariel, is when will the classic Tinybird experience disappear, if ever? Is there a timeline for that?
I mean, what I'll say is we don't have a timeline. The key piece here is just like any product. We never know what's going to work. We never know how customers are loving it. But we do have a very strong hypothesis that forward is the way to go. And that's going to be the future. So when all of you show us that this is the way, this is what you want, and actually you don't want Classic anymore, that gives us the signal that it's time to deprecate Classic. But for now, both will be alive and both will be running for a while. You'll continue to get supported on Classic, but we do want you to dive into and jump into forward, because we do believe that is the way to go, and that's actually the future of developing with data projects.
Yeah, I agree. I've already been using forward, and it's so clean. It's such a great way to build, especially when you're building an application. You're building that locally. You're building that in your IDE. You're validating your changes on localhost. Like, one of the things that I love most about Forward is that all I have to do to switch from sort of testing my APIs locally to testing them in the cloud, to actually seeing how they interact with my application, is change to environment variables. Like, that's it. It's just boom, And so that's a really cool experience that I've really I really enjoyed. Awesome. Well, nobody's asking any questions in the chat, which is fine. I kind of expected that. Most people don't actually watch these things, so we'll probably just send like an AI LLM summary of what we shared today. But again, if you have questions, please join the Slack community. That's where you can ask them and get a pretty quick answer. Santana, Ariel, thanks for hopping on, and thanks for everybody who joined. Stay tuned for more on Monday. We're going to be talking about TV infra, which, in my opinion, is probably the most underrated part of this launch that people haven't made a lot of noise about yet. But the net of it is you can deploy Tinybird on self-managed infrastructure for free, which is a pretty incredible release. So excited to share that on Monday. Yeah, we'll talk to y'all soon. Thanks everybody for your support.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.